What's up, guys? It's Doodoo Poker here, back for another video. So today we're going to talk about 3-bet pots and how to adjust after getting completely owned. Okay, so completely owned. All right, so we have Jack 10 of diamonds in the small blind. The cutoff, RFIs, we 3-bet and he calls. Okay, so the flop comes Queen of spades, 3 of hearts, 2 of spades. So I'm going to jump around to the solver and we'll be jumping around to some MDA. We're doing a lot of jumping, okay? So very standard pre-flop. Flop comes Queen of spades, 3 of hearts, 2 of spades, okay? Now, the solver does not want to bet Jack 10 of diamonds, okay? Because we know this is not a range bet, so we have to understand that a lot of hands that don't have a ton of equity just want to check, okay? So like Jack 10, like 10-9. These hands have basically no equity, so we check these hands, okay? So in game I checked, and my opponent decided to check back. Okay, so on the turn, we have an 8 of clubs, okay? So we know in a solver, the solver really likes to overbet here, okay? So let's follow along here. So it goes check, check on the flop, and I decide to overbet, okay? I decide to overbet 125 on the turn, just like a solver. Okay, so let's look at incentives. Let's look at the check fold frequencies from the field as the 3-bet pot in position pre-flop caller. Am I incentivized to delayed c-bet? What can you see here? We see that I am incentivized, okay? There's an overfold. So we know there's an overfold, okay? So when he calls, I have to think, okay, what am I going to do on turn, on rivers? All right, so let's follow along on the solver, and we have the bet 125 and the cutoff calls. Now the river is a 5 of diamonds, so I miss. So the question is, should I bluff this river? Well, we know in a solver it's mixed, 70% bet, jam, and 30% check, okay? So let's look at the check, call, folding frequencies from MDA, okay? Now it doesn't distinguish on the turn if you overbet or not. So this is just all sizings, but we do see there's an overfold, okay? We see there's an overfold. So if I knew nothing about my opponent, I would always jam river, okay? So let's see what happens. So I overbet turn, I overbet river, and he calls me with pocket nines, okay? So this is a disaster because he's supposed to fold this hand, okay? Well, it's 0 EV in a solver. Let's see the solve. 0 EV. Okay, so what's going on? Well, let's look at the MDA from my opponent's perspective. Okay, let's look at the MDA from my opponent's perspective. Once he checks back flop, he knows if he studies MDA that the delayed C-bet is over C-bet. Okay, 46. Okay, 34 to 40 is GTO. So he's incentivized to call his 0 EV bluff catchers on the turn. Okay, there's also an overfold, so you can raise more. Okay, now let's look at the river. Okay, river MDA for check, bet, bet. Okay, so this is 3-bet pot out of position pre-flop raiser. Check, bet, bet, reg MDA. Now, we don't have the overbet on the turn, but we can go to 70 and we see it's under bluffed. Okay, so if he knew MDA, he would overfold and fold the 0 EV bluff catchers as a default. Okay, but he called, and he called rather quickly. So that must mean that he's probably calling all his 0 EV bluff catchers. Okay, so how do I adjust? How do I adjust to someone that calls me with a 0 EV bluff catcher? Okay, so now, next time I play this player, now what I do is I check my value on the flop. Okay, so let's go to a solver. A solver will bet aces, will bet kings, ace queen a lot, okay? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to start checking value. So now what I do is I reverse it. Now I put my aces, my kings, my pocket eights, my ace 4, all these hands on the river, I put that in the value line. So I switch the line, okay? I switch the line. And what I do with my triple barrel line is I start putting all my bluffs in the triple barrel line. Okay, so if I have a hand like Jack 10. Now this is not a good example because the Jack 10 actually pure checks turn, because on the turn, look at the turn real quick. On the turn, when you bet, let's say you bet Jack 10 on the flop, right? The turn is an 8. You actually don't bet it because you want him to have jacks and 10s on the turn. So this is not a good example for that, but I'm just talking about what I would do with other hands. Like I would barrel my like my 7-6 suited if I had it, or if I had a hand like ace-9 suited or something like that, right? So what I would do is I'm switching all my lines now versus this guy in the future. I'm going to, because you want to be dynamic when you play poker. You want to adjust. You have to adjust to your opponents. Your opponents are fighting back. Your opponent is a moving target, so you have to move as well. So in the future, instead of putting the Jack 10 in the check OB jam line, what I do is I put aces, kings, eights, queens, ace 4, all those hands in the check OB jam line. So I'm switching my value in my bluffs. Okay, so very nice call by my opponent. So I made a note, in the future I will be switching all my lines versus him. All right, guys. Hopefully we got through that and everyone learned something. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. New video every day, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will see you in the next one.